election of the chair for the year. So,
Do the minutes first,
Oh.
because I think there's something.
okay.
Yeah. I had a comment about the minutes from November 30. I'm sorry, I had COVID and then I was traveling, so I didn't keep up. And I missed the meeting in December and the minutes were passed. However, there was a discussion that Bill Lyons brought forward from Portsmouth Climate Action about the cruise ships. It probably was 5 minutes and I went back to make sure it was part of the meeting on the recording. So it was a discussion that we make sure that the cap and the greenhouse gas inventory specifically mention ships and cruise ships. Just more specificity than the last greenhouse gas inventory. So in the future, when these things might be measurable, we'll have a holder, a placeholder for it. So I think it's important that that gets added. I don't know if it will be an addendum to the November 30 minutes, but it wasn't part of the meeting, so somehow. Bill, yeah.
Yeah, it can help with a few bullet points if I can remember them. And I'm sure I made the additional point that the CAP needs to consider all transportation greenhouse gas sources, even if there are things that the city and the community don't have direct control over, and that includes tourist ships, but also at least noting the importance of through travel, trucks, airports, and rail, even though that's part of the greenhouse gas emissions, but just to note that and recognize it, I think the cruise ships are a little bit different because the city does potentially, as a member of the Port Authority or whatever manages it, to have some influence over that.
Just to address your question about how they get added, anytime we review the minutes, if something's missing, they can just get amended and that gets added. So
great.
once everybody hears that you want to add that, nobody objects, then it would go to,
So do we have to do a motion and?
just to approve the, well, whoever made the motion might have to accept your amendment to the minutes, but other than that, if they don't say anything, then you can assume they do.
And I'm, Tori, I believe that you're taking the notes, so you got their points, and that will just go into this month's minutes, basically.
Yes.
So it will be in the minutes, actually.
Right. Thanks.
Great.
You have a motion?
Yeah, motion to accept minutes.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Awesome. And was that you last month, Josh?
Yes, I did the last minutes. I did the minutes last month.
Well, this was November, though, right? Oh, December. Oh, it's for December.
Is that right?
November minutes you're talking about.
I was talking about the November minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
except-
The Novembers are,
The motion is,
yeah, I didn't make that.
Second.
so someone.
So,
second.
can we clarify the motion, just so we're all on the same page, you're gonna make a motion to accept the December minutes as is, and then add points that Effie brought up to
The November.
either the November minutes. Yeah. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Yeah. All right. Now we have to elect the chair.
So all in favor?
All in favor?
Gotta say, just-
Aye.
Don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And Bert, did you want to talk about the election of the future chairs also?
Yeah, one thing that was really terrific when Josh wrote an email to Emma saying, is there anything we need to do? I thought his legal skills came out. I said, I want to be like him. He wrote a page that told them exactly how to run this meeting. And so I asked them if they would actually extract that page, and maybe we start a 3-ring binder that will be a handbook for the Sustainability Committee. So it will not only include how to run a meeting, the rotation, and anything else we want to put in, so that we'll have kind of a historic record. So if we go along I'm going to I don't know if you have a 3-ring binder. I have 5 of them at home that, I don't know if people use those anymore. What would be the best way to do that?
I think it'd probably turn into the rules for the committee and they just be posted on the page with the sustainability.
Okay,
Like the planning board has the planning board rules and procedures, so they would just be developed, and I think it might be worth having a agenda item at a future meeting for that. And you could add all those things to that, but however you guys want to do it.
all right, so I just, the mechanics of it, just say Emma takes those out. How do we get it? Do we go to Kate? Do we put it on ourselves? What's the process for that?
Process for.
Or if we want to say we want to have an ongoing addition to the rules. And now we have something that Josh did a really nice job, and I think almost what verbatim to tell people about running meetings. And so this would be our meeting chairperson's role for running the meeting. Do we get that up?
Yeah, well, so what was on the draft agenda and then I took it off because we weren't quite ready to bring it to you guys was a set of draft rules for the committee. And not every committee in Portsmouth has rules, but we thought it would be a good idea since we have so many standards that we've done in the past. So we're working on drafting rules and we can add a section in for chair's role.
You already
responsibilities.
got all that.
We can certainly add that in.
And then whenever you want to change the rules, so if you want to keep updating it, you just need a vote of the committee.
Good, so it's already in process.
In process, probably drafted and ready for next meeting.
Good, okay, super, that's.
Hopefully.
Right.
I would like to nominate Bert Cohen as chair of the Sustainability Committee.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Uh,
Sound good?
Thank you, my children, thank you. Thank you, and I'd like to make a proposal. That in the rules. And I put this out for discussion, that we have a chair designate. So next year. There will be somebody, I'm figuring. I'm 86, I can't even remember how old I am, that there should be somebody who would be designate to take care of the chair formal role. If there's any, they very rarely, but if there's something needs to be signed, anything, that there be somebody who would be willing to be the designated chair for the year, kind of like a co-chair. So if I'm not here or anything, they could take on whatever roles officially the chair would be. I don't know, does anybody have experience? Do you think that's necessary? Because we've never had one, but I
Yeah,
just,
governance, if they have,
what's that?
Most committees have a vice chair.
yeah. I was gonna say, we should probably just match whatever format.
Most committees have a vice chair, so
Okay.
you could just. Someone could be a vice chair.
Yeah, and that,
And then if you can't make it to a meeting, they can take over.
yeah. And then they could hassle the Eco Club if they're doing, yeah, yeah.
That what you do mostly.
So I didn't know if that was necessary, but I thought that that might be. So let's talk about that when we do the rules. Or unless somebody has.
I nominate Effie as vice chair.
Second.
Oh, you second it? Effie's like.
More discussion. I travel a fair amount, so I would like to
Consider it.
pass on the nomination. I appreciate it, and I'd love to help, but I feel like my absences are too.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, one of the things that I reviewed when I was thinking, you know, I really, when is it ready for me to actually move out? So as long as I can be useful, I want to be useful. But I also looked around this committee and every person here is so active. I said, maybe I'm doing a service by not putting other people on the spot, because I think this committee is so powerful now. Because we have each member doing work in between meetings that is significant. And so anyway, we can talk, I don't think anybody should take on, we're a volunteer committee. But as I think the question, what are we passionate about? We're here because we have passion to do something, so. I'm okay with waiting till next week and see if anybody comes up and says that I'd be willing to step up. I don't think it's gonna mean anything in terms of work, but
All right, well.
I had a couple of questions. It's kind of related to the election of chair and being a new committee in a way. I don't know. We need a school board member. Is that in the works? I wasn't sure. Oh,
Ah,
great.
okay.
How are you doing? My name's Lee Hudson.
Thank you. I'm sorry
You
for
bet, no
that.
problem.
And then the other thing was an email that Kate sent. It was really good, reminding us about quorum and being careful about that. And I'm just concerned about that because I'm so used to emailing people when things come up and I don't want to do it improperly. Could we do a quick
me to do that?
review?
Yeah.
Just 'cause you're the
Yeah, I
board.
think it's a really important point. Thank you for bringing it up, Effie. I mean, now that we're a standing committee, we don't really have we don't have a set of rules. In our rules, we'll say how many a quorum is, but typically it's about 4 members. And you could have a meeting where you could take a vote if you have a quorum. So whatever the quorum becomes, it might be 4, we might decide it's 6, whatever we decide the quorum is, that is an official meeting. And with the state right to know law, when you have a quorum of a meeting, it has to be made public. So we always advertise these meetings to make them public. And we always keep minutes and people can go back and look at the minutes or in our case, the recording as well. But when there's a quorum, it's supposed to be in a public meeting that you've advertised or at least posted. So if you send an email to someone, you're not allowed to have meetings. You're not allowed to have meetings online, even though you are allowed to have members contribute, but you have to have a quorum present in order to take a vote according to state law. So that quorum can be present, but that quorum can't be out there emailing. Like 4 people on the committee can't have emails together and then come to a meeting and say, we decided this. And for this committee, you can see that it's not as big a deal as it might be for a committee that makes decisions that affect people directly in their lives. But it's state law. We have to follow the state law. So if you want an email to the group, you can send it to Kate or I, and we could send it out. But what we try to avoid is anybody sending an email that looks for a response from other members of the committee. And then so 4 people get it, maybe 5 send an email back, and then business is happening outside of a meeting. So we always want the business to happen within a meeting. So as long as people are aware of that, and if you have questions about it, you can email us and we can answer.
So what about Portsmouth Climate Action? A number of us go to a Zoom meeting, usually
Right.
Zoom. Next week it's in person, but
That's a really good question.
3, 4.
It's not a city committee. I guess if you're not talking about the business of the sustainability committee, I think you could be okay. If you are, then we can follow up with some research.
Well, it would help if we made the quorum a bigger number.
Yep.
Than a littler number.
That might be a good justification.
But I
for
don't
that.
know how that works.
Yeah.
So I did want to check.
That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, because they're so close in their mission.
Because we.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was Herb that brought up that we really need to clarify roles between the groups like CCAN, Portsmouth Climate Action, and this group, and then the Energy
Advisory.
Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
So there is some overlaps in it. For a while, Portsmouth Climate Action kind of thought of ourselves as the community engagement branch of this committee.
Yep.
So it definitely overlaps with this committee.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to think about it, I guess. If it's not gonna have a quorum and we can make that work, that it's small enough number that it's not hitting a quorum, then you're gonna be okay. If it turns into a quorum, you might have to advertise it as a meeting, which isn't a huge issue, but you're meeting online, which that might bump against it. If it becomes like a subcommittee
So-
of the committee.
But it would be advertised on the city website or?
Well, it's a public meeting. so
Yeah.
we have to advertise it
Because
in
right
3
now
public-
we have
2
a
public
mailing
places.
list that goes to,
Yeah.
I don't know, 65 people
Yeah,
or
I
something.
don't think of that as same as
Yeah, it's
sustainability
not.
committee though, because it's
Yeah.
more. But let me do some research.
Okay,
on that.
thanks.
That's a good question.
and I think if I understood you correctly, there's 4 of us who go to this meeting and that meeting. So if we made this 5, for a quorum. That would
maybe
cover
that
us.
would do it.
That would do, that's when I heard. So 5 people, and we have on the committee 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we have to
2,
decide
10.
9, 10, 11. So I think it'll be pretty easy for us to get 5 people. So we'd always be able to do business, but or we could 5 or 6.
What's the line between business of the committee and just a associated topic, though? I mean, like if more than a quorum of city councilors happen to go to the same play at Seacoast Rep, is that a quorum and it's a city council meeting, or is that just
No,
people that are at
yeah,
the
I
event?
was thinking of the same thing, like if they all belong to a club and they happen to meet there at the club. So those are chance meetings, I think. And I'm not an expert in this, so I'm gonna have to do some research, but like if the city council is planning to go to a meeting that another board is having or something else, some other meeting, and there's knowledge in advance that they're gonna meet, then they put a notice of potential quorum of the city council, just to like notify people that there might be a quorum there, but so it gets a little particular in the rules, but I think we can work around it.
like a 4th of July or some sort of event
Yeah.
where you might have.
Yeah,
Right, or even candidate karaoke, if anybody's been.
I
to
think
that.
they can, I think they can run into each other and have a
Yeah.
quorum and not break the rules if it's a chance meeting or something like that. It's more if it's like a planned thing, and that's why the email becomes an issue, because you're usually talking about business when you're sending an email to people, or it often turns into business, so that's why it's good to just be aware of that.
On that line, but different, now that we are a standing committee, what is our official title of our committee? Are we the Sustainability Committee or the Committee of Sustainable Practices or the Sustainable Practices Committee or?
The council action,
Council Actions for Sustainability Committee.
I think it was the
I
sustainability.
Yeah,
believe it's-
sustainability.
That's what my little letter said.
But you have it? Okay.
All right, so we can move on to the agenda real quick. First, we have Community Engagement Committee updates. Then solar overlay district and EV charging city council updates. Places to live, study circles update. Small gas engine presentation, website updates, and CAP outreach and engagement update. Is there anything else people would like to add?
It'll be a quick item, but a solar canopy at the high school.
Yeah, computer is not working.
Yeah, we can start with the Community Engagement Committee updates.
So I can start, we have a date for the sustainability fair. It is Sunday, April 14th from 12 to 3. It will be at the Connie Bean again. Max Waiter, our city arborist, had reached out to me after last year and said he wanted to try to coordinate giving out trees to the community with the sustainability fair this year. So I've already reached out to him and he's on board and he's gonna do it. I've already had a nonprofit tell me they're committed to doing it. And I attended the Zoom thing last night about the state climate action plan. And so I emailed a couple of facilitators, one from DES and one from New Hampshire Listens, to see if they would consider coming to it as well. And then in the next few days, I'll start reaching out to participants from last year. We hope to build off of what we did last year. So last year was only municipality entities and nonprofits. This year, we're going to invite businesses as well to get them to engage. And we've also talked about doing some like quick 15-minute presentations, kind of down and dirty, just share information, take homes that people can take action right away. And so we're trying to figure out the logistics of where those will be and how that'll work and all of those pieces to coordinate with the fair.
And we talked about Portsmouth High School Eco Club getting involved.
Yes, I will be emailing you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When is it?
April 14th. So it is the weekend before April break for all the schools, which was intentional to avoid. That's why it's not close to Earth Day, because we wanted to avoid the vacation time so that hopefully more students and families would attend.
The other thing about community engagement is last night at Portsmouth Climate Action, we talked a lot about Bright Action, the app and website that a lot of us use to track strategies around our households to reduce greenhouse gases and live more ecologically. And we thought of Bright Action partly as anchoring the CAP that's going to be coming out soon and finding ways really for the community to be involved. So what's happening is our contract will run out for year one fairly soon. We have some wiggle room with that. And next year will cost $2,500. The first year cost more because we had setup expenses and CCAN stepped up and paid the first year. So we haven't figured out the funding for the upcoming year.
All right, when you say next year, do you have, is there a month or is it?
Probably around April, the year starts. They're willing to, the contract was signed in February, but there was some delay getting things started. Oh, and they're coming out with an app format soon. So it really looks good on a phone, but I've only seen the prototype or beta version, whatever. So we're really waiting to see that.
I just want to do a quick survey. Anybody in this room who signed up for Bright Action, raise your hand if you have. Okay, leave your hand up. How many have, after you signed up, how many have used it at least once? Leave your hand up.
What do you mean by used?
After you signed up, you went back to look at it again. Okay, anybody has gone back and looked at it twice at least? Anybody has gone back and looked at it 3 times? See, so what we really, I think, are trying to do is where do we accelerate and scale what we want to do? And is this a tool that's going to give us our biggest bang for the buck? Now, we're getting to know it. And I have to be honest, I haven't gone back in. However, if there's an app coming out, will students be wanting to use it more? Can we've already invested 4,500. Is it worth another year of 2,500 to go for outreach? And then Bill had some really ideas that started to motivate me. You want to share those, Bill?
Yeah, I think we could consider Bright Action as sort of a potentially an untapped resource, particularly tied into the CAP implementation. And once a CAP takes form, probably the building blocks in Bright Action will be the same as the building blocks in the CAP. And it might be a good community engagement tool for people who look at the CAP and say, well, yeah, I'd like to support it, but what can I do? And Bright Action really translates things down to what does it mean if you substitute a bike ride for a car trip, or you put solar on, or you buy an EV, or you work from home. I mean, you can actually see the greenhouse gas reductions from those, and probably those will be strategies and actions in the CAP, and that would be a potential tool, and maybe then there's a chance to scale it up. But it seems like there's an already invested amount in that, and it's maybe a good time, maybe once the CAP comes out, to be thinking about that as a potential resource.
Is there, and I've, to your point, Bert, I went in there initially and I think I've been in there once since. But I don't think that I've seen any engagement out of it either. Is there a means of using that to send, like, I don't know, a monthly email newsletter, or hey, have you thought about trying this? Or,
Yeah,
like an ongoing
we
thing?
do send out a monthly newsletter, and it usually, the format is to focus on
Getting
one topic and have a testimonial from someone who had experience with it. I don't remember the last example, but
And it's also set up to, if I'm right, Effie, to allow entries either from individuals, households, or organizations. So potentially a school or a church or a business could engage their members in that, even in a friendly competition.
We have a group from South Church now and one from St. John's Episcopal.
Another piece that might be useful this year is we're going to potentially give community conversations, 5 of them, and try to coordinate those with the CAP and the sectors of the CAP. So if there's one on mobility or whatever, at that particular time when people say, what can you do? We say, here's a whole list of things to do. And we might try to promote it that way because people's time is so precious, and to get motivated to do something is probably going to take several different angles to say, yeah, I am really interested in getting an induction stove. I'm ready. So we see one at the sustainability fair, and then we have one on electric today. And then we go to a community conversation and there's somebody says, Bright Action has the list of the plumber and so forth. I think that's what is potentially there. So one thing we actually CCAN got their money from the club Rotary because, and they didn't use it for something else, and that's where we got the money. I'm just wondering, I don't know the budgeting for the city, and we have the 20,000 and we have government. What do you think about in terms of it being a city function? That's another thing we need to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, at the cap, we purposely left the cap with 20,000 to spend afterwards. It could be that this committee, wants to spend it on that. I guess your point is your first point about will people use it? It's a good one, and we have a little bit of time still to see, maybe there's a way to do some more marketing or more outreach to see if you could get it ramped up to make it worth it. And I think it's really up to the committee if that's where you want to go with that. I mean, there's certainly money that can come in at a future time, but that could be money that was, there's money set aside for sustainability for the cap, basically. And if it's an action right out of the cap that you want to embark upon as a committee, then I think that's reasonable. I don't think you have to make a decision right now, but I think it's something to explore.
We're part of Eco Club at the high school, and we're also interested in leaving a senior gift. And we have the means to spend on that. So if we were able to get some more education about the app, and maybe someone could come in and talk with the club. Us four are looking to leave something.
Yeah. And it'd be really interesting for the whole club to hear about that.
Demonstration.
Using it.
I have a question.
Polish it off. Or
A question here for the group. Is there anybody here tonight who's not signed up, who is curious enough to take 20 minutes and sign up for Bright Action? It doesn't cost anything. You could, there's leverage. There's leverage and acceleration. Lee, I haven't, yeah. So this is probably new to you.
it is.
Yeah, I was hoping, I did have my eye on you, by the way. Lee, since the club's going to be doing it, and what it is, like 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, we were saying, couldn't we give people a list of things to do? Because at that time, they didn't know. Now there's a whole website. So if you want to know how to insulate your house or get it has all kinds of things. So if you go on, it'd be fun to see how hard it is to sign up. Took me 10 minutes, but I'm a little bit older than you. And anyway, if you do, it would be fun to hear back next week, next meeting, if you do it. Yeah, great. That'd be great.
Okay, do you have a ETA on the app? Because I feel like that's something they've been talking about for a little while.
Yeah.
So.
No. Originally, they said the summer, and then it was the fall.
Yeah, got it.
It's winter.
Yeah.
But I did see the beta version, and it looks close to done,
Okay.
so maybe February.
Fair enough.
All right, does anyone have anything to add before we move on?
I want to make sure we have leave Robert's email. And I don't. I'll get it from you afterwards.
Thanks. Abby.
P. Hudson, I'm sorry.
All right, so next up, we're gonna talk about solar overlay district and EV charging city council updates. Anyone who likes to start us off?
I could give an update on the EV charging. So right now, the planning board's having a work session on the EV charging station ordinance. It's an amendment to the zoning ordinance, which this committee reviewed around 2 years ago. Essentially, it looked at the different districts throughout the city and said what's required in each district for each type of charger, whether it be a level 1 charger, level 2 charger, a level 3 fast charger. And although I was calling it primary use, there's a different, what's the word that starts, principal use and a say secondary use, accessory, thank you. Use. So what the planning board is doing right now with their work session, they're going through it. And whether it be at tonight's meeting or at a future meeting, they'll refer it back to the city council to vote on. So that's the most progress that has been made. The meeting started at 6. They allowed me to speak for about 5 minutes and generalities on EV charging and one reason why Portsmouth doesn't have any level 3 fast chargers. And after that, I spoke about specifics, and then Effie spoke as well, and she made sure to include the climate action plan. And one thought which the chair had is possibly breaking it up. And I said I'd defer to the planning board and to Councillor Moreau on this, whether the simpler portions of the ordinance for level 1, level 2 chargers, maybe send it back to the city council first. And then if they had more time to go over level 3 chargers, send that over separately. So it would be 2 different sets of readings and city council debates. But I don't know where they're gonna land on that. So that is a update. You guys have any questions on that?
If nobody else has anything, I just want to make, I want to check. This is a historic meeting. And so I wanted to take pictures of everybody sitting around and anybody who is willing to, at the end, stay, will have, maybe somebody click a picture to record forever the first standing meeting or sitting meeting of the council. So I just wanted to see if we could alert. Is there anybody who objects to having the picture taken? Okay, then I'm gonna shoot a few and then we'll get a group portrait.
Awesome.
So who can provide the solar overlay? Is that, Peter, do you have an update on solar overlay?
So the solar overlay, I think, is talking about the HTC.
Yes.
Solar.
Yeah.
I can talk about solar
Is it-
smart though, if you want, if that's what you're getting at.
The solar, no, I thought solar overlay district
There's
is
a
not
separate
just
ordinance.
HTC, it's beyond that.
Correct. So the solar overlay district, we had discussed it, came up with the draft ordinance, brought it to the city council, and the city council referred it to staff to see the best way to move forward. Because when Tom Morgan spoke about solar, he said there's different ways to figure out how you could come up with different districts, so commercial knows where they can put solar arrays.
So just to bring you into the conversation more, with solar, we could have big solar arrays, and that's what we'd really love to see in Portsmouth. You don't. I mean, you cross the line into Vermont, you cross the line into Massachusetts, you'll see them. But we need to change our zoning laws to see some of that happen. And nearby in Seabrook, there's a couple of big solar arrays going up, and someone who lives in Portsmouth came and spoke to the committee. So we really worked on talking to the city council, and Josh was great leading it through, that we want to see large scale private solar investment. So how do we make our zoning laws so that's allowed in Portsmouth? And we think that will make a big difference. And everybody really wants solar. So, That piece got referred by city council to the city manager,
Correct.
and she's working with city staff on developing the zoning ordinance.
What locations are you guys thinking?
That's the question, is like where, like, is how do we figure out where it should be allowed? One method is you look at a topographical map of Portsmouth, you eliminate some areas and see what's left, but there's other methods to do it. And
So
my MLA
the
person.
thing that comes to mind is parking lots.
Mhm.
So private solar developments, for getting the Vermont example, when you go to Vermont, all the parking lots are covered. In Massachusetts a lot too. And they have,
Oh, like above them.
yeah, but rooftops are
that-
possible.
I think that's a little different though, because that would be a
That's different.
secondary use
That's
instead of a
separate.
primary
That's right.
use.
Yeah.
Primary
Yeah.
use is what they're
Yeah.
trying to cover
Yeah.
with that, I think.
So
right?
some open space for that.
And we don't have a lot of it, so, but, you know, for
But-
commercial, but it could be, you know, Pease or other places. But there are some small pieces. What is it, you need for commercial to be viable, you need 5 acres or more.
Megawatts.
5 megawatts. And I can't remember, does that equal how many acres? But it's a sizable chunk of
A
land.
lot.
And so, you know, unless we do the exercise, we don't know where the opportunities are in the city. And so I think that's the point, is to go through this exercise with looking at creating an overlay map to
And-
see what does that look like?
And the problem with brownfield is that's city property, is that right? The brownfield sites.
In the presentation
Stone's Apple
too,
is.
there's a lot of conversation about like, if these are, I mean, these are for-profit solar generation, and so in some ways, it's more of like, how do you set up that ordinance in a way that you can make sure that it's happening in a responsible manner and in a way that the city wants it, because the developers themselves will come in and they will find every acre of viable land that they're going to do. So it's less about like finding the spots and then saying, hey, you can do it over here, as much as it's like, okay, where is it reasonable? Where is it not reasonable? And like finding those areas, or what type of, you know, community process would be required to approve it. If that's, you know, like, it's more, I feel like, on that end of things.
Right.
Because that's the beauty of allowing it to be a, you know, private or commercial entity to do it.
There could be some controversy if someone wants to come in and put a solar farm with the community. So it is important to identify locations where if you're gonna create an ordinance to do it as a primary use in open space, what are the criteria? And then you'd still have to get wetland permits if it was in a wetland. You still have to get site review from the planning board and dealing with infrastructure and connections. But in response to the solar overlay, and a parallel track is the Soul Smart. And very similar to what Josh is looking to do, I think, from the council standpoint, is Soul Smart is a program the city's joined that tries to encourage and enhance the amount of solar in the city, I guess, the shortest way to describe it. And we're looking at that. Kate and I and Jillian in the planning department have, you know, looked at Soul Smart and what it takes to become a bronze member. So we're working towards getting our bronze level certification as a Soul Smart community. And really what it is although people can put solar on their house, someone could even come in and put solar all over the parking lot right now as an accessory use. They couldn't come in and put a solar farm in without approval, but just like any business, they could come in and apply for it, and they haven't really done that, because I think the highest and best use of the property is probably not going to be a solar farm in an area like that, except like a landfill or something like that. So Kate is looking at locations throughout the city where it might be viable.
Right.
And then the next step will be, you know, maybe to the next level in the Soul Smart is like identifying these areas where you could do a solar farm and identifying an ordinance that you could use to put a solar farm in. So it's happening through the Soul Smart process. It also, you know, kind of a parallel track, I guess, looking at opportunities. The first thing that'll happen is, just like what's happening with the EVs, is the ordinance will be really clear that you can put a solar panels on your roof, even though we get like 3 applications a week for people to put solar panels on the roof, and we allow them. We'll tell people that you can do it as an accessory use on your property. The principal use is going to be the trickier one. Where do people want solar farms? And I think the community has to be brought into that conversation and understand where you could put solar farms. And is there really any viable places in Portsmouth? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. So we're gonna look at from a GIS perspective where it looks possible. And some criteria that people can look at and review, and then we can adjust it if people think we should look here or there more. But then the next step would be an ordinance for a primary, a principal use for solar.
Right.
And we go there. So it's moving.
So the planning board, when we were there briefly, said they would potentially be talking about solar panels in the historic district
Separate from.
on February 14th.
Yeah.
Perhaps,
Perhaps.
but it's Valentine's Day.
Give solar
But it's
panels a little
not
love.
tonight.
No, the city council referred that to the planning board and asked them to talk with the HDC as well about it. To see where, how they could allow solar panels. So that'll be another solar discussion.
Yeah.
Well, go
I
ahead.
think you just have to write ye old on the bottom of each one.
Any less? Yep.
Can I ask a bunch of questions? Does anybody mind?
No, please.
What's the difference between primary and accessory
I had
use?
that same question.
Principal and accessory.
Principal,
use.
sorry,
They
yeah.
were just
say
talking
primary.
about that
Yep.
in
Apologize.
planning board. So principal use is usually talked about in the major, the primary way a landowner makes money on the site. So like, they were talking about a gas station, and I think you gave the example that the principal use in a gas station might be the convenience store selling stuff or the repairs.
Auto shop.
Yes, auto shop. But accessory use is like a secondary use.
So
Really like solar farms versus a canopy over something that was a parking lot or like,
Okay.
Yeah.
what was this made for?
Yeah.
And then if you're taking advantage of something that's already there, then that's an
So if
accessory.
it's principal use, it really would be a solar farm.
And it's probably gonna be at scale because to make it financially make sense, it's probably pretty big.
And so what's the benefit to the community to have something that's principal use solar farm?
The scale of solar energy that would be available to the community and to feed back into the New England grid to make it cleaner, higher percentage of clean energy.
But thus far, even Massachusetts, and my mom lives in Massachusetts, for example, hasn't seen a reduction in the cost of her energy. Right? And so how do you actually make it beneficial to the community such they want to make that investment in the first place?
Well, it's something that the Energy Advisory Committee is looking at as well, because we have community power now and Portsmouth is a member of community power. But the prices are going down, and further, we're able to set aside some funds for projects. And I don't know what that will look like. Herb is on that committee as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits, in Massachusetts has been a big adopter of commercial solar arrays. And one of the benefits is that the local municipality and the state are collecting tax money for that property. But the property's not consuming any services. Right, so that's a pretty good, it's a pretty good trade-off. But obviously, there's environmental benefits and such. And for community, there may not be. I mean, there's some, a landowner can do something with their property. It doesn't mean that there are. Right, I could plant alfalfa, and does that have a benefit to you? So not all property uses have benefits to the general community. And so, if somebody owns the property and they want to put up a solar array, they can do, they could do that just as they can plant alfalfa on it too.
Or a Walmart.
True, but does the city have to approve that as well if it's a commercial site?
Yeah, if I was gonna plant alfalfa.
Well.
not if it was-
Well, I think that's kind of the point, right? Like
Yeah.
the zoning allows you to do certain things. So essentially right now, because we don't have this overlay and we don't have any language about primary solar, if there was, which there isn't, but if there was a 5 acre lot that for whatever reason wasn't viable to have been really built on, and you had 2 developers come in and one wanted to build a Walmart and one wanted to do primary solar generation, technically, we don't have the avenue for this. So just because our zoning doesn't call it out, there's no
So it's more like opening that as if it's viable, then is it something we want to then consider with all the other, zoning things that we'd still be looking at? Like those don't go out the window. It's just opening the door.
Are there any concerns about recyclability of solar panels?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any, it's just, we have the same concerns as we have with electronics. You know how with the percentage of electronics in the United States that gets recycled? 15%. 15% of electronics in the United States get recycled currently. The rest of it goes into landfills, which is horrible, absolutely horrible. So yes, I mean, just like anything else. And in this committee, we've had a lot of conversations over the past 2 years or so about the manufacturers of products should be paying for the life cycle costs. And it has to be factored into the whole life cycle. And so solar panels are no different than automobiles or home electronics or anything like that. Yeah, it's a big problem.
Embodied carbon in solar panels, though, is something that is talked about because solar panels in general are sustainably forward. So that conversation tends to happen a lot faster than it does with other products because
Right,
it's just
yeah.
a different market and something that those people in that market generally tend to care about. So that's a plus, but that doesn't mean that it's not an issue and that embodied carbon isn't a factor.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, if you want to go find that embodied carbon, that life cycle assessment and number on a solar panel, you're gonna have a lot better luck than on, most laptops or other products that you might have, which is a positive.
You're asking all the right questions.
Just wondered if there's progress, because I know I've heard concerns, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of progress being made here in the US about recycling solar panels. And same with electronics. There's huge plant that's being built right now in Rochester, New York. It's going to cover the Northeast. And so there is a lot of good progress being made, but it's not fast enough. I mean, we've got to, right? We have to accelerate and scale. These things we've just got to keep our foot on the floor. Yeah.
Thanks for letting me ask a bunch of questions.
Oh, yeah. Keep asking questions. That's the only way to learn.
Thank you, Lee.
Sorry to be
That's a good omen for that we're engaged in this group. We really want dialogue. And dialogue is that we're throwing body of ideas into the center here like a lake, and everybody should come out having received and changed. We don't come here with fixed ideas. We're trying to discover what is reality, because I have a question that somebody might have. I know where time is. Your question triggered me. I think about community power, and you said, what's the benefit to the community? I'm seeing the acceleration of climate change and of big systems going out. And is it a plus that if in ideal world, community power was able to buy for the city a solar field, that if the big system goes out, we would still have some local systems going. So it's decentralizing. Is that a big benefit to the community or not? What do people know about that? Have people talked about that with you?
And so can you say, so the question is about diversity of the power?
Well, we asked what benefit to the community?
Yeah,
If everything's on a big grid and goes out, New England goes out. If we have smaller units that have the capacity, when the big unit goes out, like you have a little generator, is a solar farm, maybe something that's going to keep our local police and hospital, is that a real benefit to the community? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm feeling in ideal world, it might have been. And does anybody know about that?
well,
That storage.
yeah, exactly, right?
Well,
Bingo. And so-
microgrids is what that's called.
Yeah.
And that it can be configured that way, but it has to be intentionally configured that way. And that's more than just having the solar farm. That's developing the electric grid on that so that a part of it can disconnect itself from the larger grid when
Turn
that
it into
happens.
hydrogen and go, I mean, there's all kinds of systems and we got to.
I don't know much about this, but I will say Kate Cook has brought this issue up in the past and talked about energy independence and national security, and that if we are finding more ways to create our own power that's efficient and renewable, that just makes us less reliant on external sources, sort of to the piece you're talking about, but in a broader sense. So it's a little bit of that conversation.
But also though, say that if you're looking at like energy use as a faucet and we have a leak, like, let's not try to find a bigger bucket. Let's try to like stop the leak, you know? So and this is my, you know, green building, green infrastructure hat on, but I just sort of like, we could also use less energy and have better buildings and all of that. And that is also a way to achieve safety and security and energy independence if we're less reliant. So just put in a plug for it. I think the balance of those things is important.
Okay.
Yes,
we're
Anne.
gonna- In the essence of our time, we're gonna move on to the next.
Good job. It is not an easy job.
We got a bonus point for great facilitation.
Yeah.
Which is Places to Live Study Circles update. Does anyone here have an update?
Yes, now for something completely different. This committee focuses on energy and on climate change. And I would love to make the case that sustainability also involves the built environment and involves the social aspect. That this universally accepted definition for sustainability is the 3 E's that came out of the UN's Brundtland Commission many years ago. And it's environment, equity, and economy. And it's not those one at a time. It's those all together, and they're balanced and they're traded off. And the city is 3 weeks into a major undertaking that is under the auspices of the Planning and Sustainability Department. So certainly there's sustainability right there. On Places to Live, sort of AKA the housing dialogue. It kicked off about 3 weeks ago with a standing room only kickoff of about 150 people in the City Hall chambers, a housing 101, Places to Live 101. And I did the overview on housing as part of a bigger picture. And I didn't use the word sustainability, but it was purely intended to be the need of thinking of housing as part of a larger system, thinking of environment and economy and equity, and that I think has become one of the major legs of the housing dialogue. It's there are 14 different groups underway. How many people are in a group? Facilitating one group, and yesterday a member of the group said this: we've got to be thinking about climate change, and it wasn't me. It came up, and it'll be interesting to see what comes up out of the other 14 groups if they get into the building itself. And I think that the point in the systems approach is that you may start with the building itself and the design of the building itself, but also how you get to the places you need to go, and the importance of neighborhoods and livable communities is very much as much a concern as the affordability and the range of supply of housing. So it'll be quite interesting to see what comes out of that. The groups meet 4 times a week, so this is the 2nd week, and then we'll
Once a week.
once a week.
Nice. Yeah, not 4 times a week.
4 times a week. You missed 6.
Yeah.
You've been meeting
Way
4
behind.
times.
And then the groups will give presentations to the city council and the planning committee. I was trying to find it online, but I think it's the 23rd. Does that sound right? 22nd, 6:30? 6:30, I think.
6:30.
Are the groups by like topic, or is it just 14 groups?
No, there's a study guide that all the groups are following with a sequence of reading. So it really begins with what people come in thinking, but then the group works together to dig into a set of fixed resources that keeps growing as people keep finding other interesting things. And at least I know from Group F, people seem to be very, very engaged. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the report. I know that in the CAP and the community engagement, we've talked about the importance of transportation and buildings and energy efficiency in that. And it may be that there's some useful alignment between the housing and the CAP. And maybe we might consider maybe a report to this committee after that's finished of sort of big picture overview of key findings. Effie,
So that's the same night as our next meeting.
The presentation night.
I know they wrestled with trying to find a date.
And I would offer in our study group, we talked about efficient public transportation today as a piece of the picture and the challenges between housing density and how community members are opposed to that, but maintaining open space, especially as we're seeing flooding and those kinds of things. So there is definitely a climate change, sustainability piece to the conversations that at least our group is having.
I think some nice opportunities to connect major initiatives that are underway. This is a major initiative, just like the CAP is a major initiative, and synergies, I think, would be quite great as they emerge.
I think it's actually 6 p.m. So what? That helps.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'm coming into this conversation late, and I'm wondering where would I go to do my homework to kind of get the context of it. So I appreciate it.
I'll check with you for the housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me send you some links for that, because you can get the resources even though it's too late to sign up for the groups, but and it's actually all the material I think is on this is a combined effort of the city, Housing Navigator, Howard Snyder, and Portsmouth Listens. And on the city website, I think is the kickoff video is up on that. And it may look long, but maybe half of that is some group exercises. So if you just wanted to see the presentations, there are 3 or 4 of those, and they're pretty short, maybe 15 minutes each.
I was just a really short comment. I'm really glad to hear that. I was at the initial meeting and was trying hard to get in one of the groups, but I couldn't coalesce something that worked with my work schedule, unfortunately. And that was the primary thing that I wanted to bring into it, in addition to, what I know about the built environment, but also making sure that sustainability was part of the conversation. So I'm glad you all are holding the torch in at least your groups.
I think what I can do is send Kate the links, and they're on the city and the Portsmouth Listens website for the kickoff. And then I think there are a lot of materials that are probably up on the website as well. And the study guide would be useful.
I want to put a plug here on the working group of the kind of green building infrastructure working group. One of our things now that we've done the municipal policy, and that's across the finish line, is we want to make sure to have another chance for other people to engage in that working group. Be a little careful about quorum on this committee. But maybe a good way to do that is if there are people coming out of this exercise that have a special interest in that side, that could be like a way for them to continue to be engaged, because on our docket to talk about is either like additional green building codes, other like energy code ordinances from an energy efficiency standpoint. So that could be a bit of a pipeline, and we're currently very open to additional people who want to be interested or are interested and want to kind of work on some of those proposals.
It might be the same thing for the climate plan. There may be people coming out of the housing that are interested on a housing and climate connection that then could be connected into the CAP and the CAP implementation.
Yeah, that actually just reminded me that PHA, the Housing Authority, they came out with a pretty big sustainability report this summer, at the end of the summer. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
public, but we could ask if we could send it around maybe, because they looked at all their buildings and sort of what they can do. And they're working with the city, Craig Welch's, because we're counting them in the municipal greenhouse gas emissions as like municipal operations. So they're really interested in working with us to see where they can reduce around town their emissions in their buildings and their staff and their vehicles, things like that. So
Yeah,
They
I've
fall
had-
under the green building
In my
municipality.
group, I was looking at Portsmouth Housing Authority resources, and the big report is about housing and housing needs. I don't remember the title of it, but that's a really good resource. But then I saw the sustainability guide, and they have a sustainability coordinator, Matt Osgood.
mhm.
So
Well,
it might be
let me
great if
clarify
you came
that.
to this.
Because I live in the Portsmouth Housing Authority facility. And there was a sustainability plan written last year. Matt Osgood is a student at Bowdoin, he was here for the summer and undertook all of the filling all the measurements for looking at Portsmouth Housing's expenditure, generation emissions. And that process is ongoing. And they're very interested in being part of the city. Having the city know about the work. So. And it's in its early stages. Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked with some of their facility people and their buildings are frankly terrible from a sustainability standpoint. They're, you know, seventies, terrible construction, no insulation.
I lived next to one of the Portsmouth Housing Authority buildings, and I know they replaced all the windows and doors. Improved energy efficiency, and that's part of the plan, but.
It helps.
a Small part.
Yeah, I think- I think-
The big ones could use a whole
Under
reskinning.
Municipality for something, it's not like
It's not.
our green building, okay. This policy wouldn't impact that.
Just a quick question. So when you say green building, does that include smart? So
Smart
Smart
as
building.
in like grid smart.
as in energy efficiency smart building. So yes, it's one thing to put in, you know, higher R-rated windows, for example, but then that's another thing to actually have a smart building that actually manages the energy efficiency of that building.
So what I think you're asking, not specifically, but so the policy that we're talking about is the municipality policy. So it's not extended past what the municipality isn't, it just passed. And we will make sure to share it with you, but there are sections from energy efficiency to our value, but we don't have anything in there that is specific to smart grid, with the exception of that new buildings will be LEED, and part of LEED has smart grid capabilities, and that is like credits there. So it very much could happen, and it very much would be incentivized by following this policy. You'd be following practices that would likely lead you to using that technology, but it does not. It's a bit more, we tried to orient it as performance as possible rather than prescriptive as possible, being very aware that we have a very diverse building stock and a lot of renovation. So we can't just rely on the new stuff going in to make an impact, but we can share it for you.
I just wondered, thank you.
There's a lot of federal funding available. Portsmouth Housing Authority is a unicorn. There's so much federal funding available for somebody like them. And we've talked about that at the Energy Advisory Committee as a possible opportunity to reach out and kind of give them some guidance. The Portsmouth schools, another unicorn. There's so much federal funding. And
What does unicorn mean?
Oh, it just like,
Other than this.
just- yeah,
I was gonna say, I know.
you know, so something that's just like, oh my gosh, look what we found. Like a big pot of money.
The people
So
with the money.
There is, yeah, schools under the IRA and some other legislation. I don't know if the Portsmouth School District is chasing after or has, all this federal funds that are out there for energy efficiency. You guys are aware of all that.
I will say as much as I can say on this topic. Being a secret fed.
Yeah.
there is a lot of money.
Yeah.
The process of going for those grants is a lot. And it would be a lot for staff of these organizations. And so it's definitely something to consider in that process.
Yeah.
It's long. And if you can get the right people who have the right amount of time to do that, it can be very fruitful and it's great. And like, you're totally right, and that there's a lot of funding for that. But I think it really needs to be recognized that it's not exactly just a, hey, go look online process. So,
Well, I mean,
from a, like, we wanted to really encourage that. I think the best way to do that would be to find a way to help our city staff or school staff navigate that process, because it is what you would imagine of large
Yeah.
grants.
And
and
the
bureaucracy.
IRA guidance, how familiar you are with some of that. I mean, it's evolving,
Yeah.
right? And there's still so much guidance left to be issued. But it's a runway.
Mhm.
And, you can't get out on the runway unless you start on the taxiway.
Mhm.
And so these are, multi-year efforts.
Yeah, I would just say, like, I think the best way to start would be is there a way we can find resources for somebody to find those opportunities?
Yeah.
Because often by the time you hear about them, then the resources and time that you have to put in to apply for them, they don't always work out.
Especially for a smaller city.
Yeah, especially for a smaller city or very specific projects. A lot of them are also large pots of money. So one other way to go about that is collaborative efforts, which makes it a bit hard with our state situation, because a lot of times it would be a state who then would come up with many municipal partners who would get parts of those funds, and they're going for like a bigger pot. But there are also often like partnership opportunities, so you could put out and you could say, hey, Portsmouth is interested in doing these types of grant opportunities. If there are other municipalities or other nonprofits or academia or other people who are going for these grants, and go in together is often a really good way to also do that. But it is
And some
process.
larger cities have grant writers where that's their sole job on staff, is applying for grants. Portsmouth does not currently have someone whose full-time job is applying for grants. Now, that person's job would easily pay for itself once the grants start coming in. But that's a conversation that has been brought up every now and again.
So
Seems like that would be a perfect thing to add to Peter's department. As a sustainability committee, a grant writer for.
Yeah.
Grant writing already.
There we go.
a lot of
It's
the
fair.
a lot of the federal funds in the IRA and the bipartisan infrastructure law, and we talked about this a bit last year on the transportation side, flow through the state. On the transportation side, flow through the state DOT, or flow through the regional planning organizations like the Rockingham Planning Commission. In a state like Massachusetts, they'll have their land use transportation planning organization have a whole staff that works with the cities and provides technical assistance and grant writing. It seems like that's another conduit to collaboration. And I don't know if we're going to talk about the state climate action plan and the some of us have participated in some of their outreach. I think you did, Kate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Effie and I went.
And that's really geared toward quickly putting the cap together to qualify for some of these federal funds. And those are intended for localities. So that certainly is a game that Portsmouth could be playing, and maybe already is. But, with staff limitations, they really have to use those state and regional resources if they're available.
If everyone's ready to move on. Next up is small gas engines presentations.
And I'll do that, but can you Josh, give us an update on the high school parking solar canopy?
Sure.
You brought that up.
So this was actually something which was brought up by the prior member from the school board, Margot Peabody. Thank you. I'm stalling here as I try to find my notes on it. But in essence, what it came down to, she was working, I believe, with a number of students and to essentially try to get a solar canopy over the parking lot itself. And the city had its CIP meeting with all the department heads 2 weeks ago. And I was sitting next to the superintendent, and the superintendent's learned to anticipate me asking about electric vehicle chargers being installed at the school itself. And I'd mentioned how under the new guidelines, which the city has when they go to, excuse me, go to repave, because there's some like $400,000 worth of repaving currently in the CIP for the schools, that they're going to be required to do the wiring. But then I went a step further and asked if he was familiar with this project. And there was other interest on the council. I know Councilor Tabor said he was interested in pursuing it to possibly see if it would even be feasible to do a solar canopy at the high school over the parking lot.
Which,
Um,
yeah, the lower big one.
and let me, and this might mean more to Lee or other people on staff, but the best point of contacts would likely be Ken Lynchy, followed by Nathan Lunny. I'm not sure. So those were the two who were working on the project, and that's who also be the best people to work with and try to run with it. So right now it's just conversations. I'm not sure if you guys heard anything about this project.
Something that I'm sure as person has with these.
Yeah.
Working through.
So
Yeah.
And Ken is Director of Facilities.
Okay.
And then Nathan is actually a business administrator.
and I've seen Nathan on a regular basis. I just know him
Okay.
as Nathan. I didn't put together the last name till I said it just now, and I'm like, oh, that's right.
There's also, I mean, so there's I had to look this up and I might have to double check the final policy. But there's the conduit pathways for EV charging when there's paving, but there's also explore and present basic design and cost for solar array covered parking
Oh, it's great.
in the municipal green building policy.
Good.
So it's not, you have to do it, but it's at least you have to do a feasibility check and have that be part of the project. So that would at least help with that side of it of it's, there's a reason it needs to be done before.
Thank you.
Yep.
For that, Tori.
Okay, sake of time, let's run through electric lawnmower rebate program. So give a little back history on this for those that weren't here or that don't remember this conversation a couple months ago. Steve was gracious enough to bring to our attention how bad gas-powered lawnmowers and other small equipment like leaf blowers and weed whackers, how bad they are for the environment. When he brought it up, I had no idea how really horrific they are. But we've since found out, I've since got educated on that. So Steve, Chaz, and I met a couple times, and we are looking at in that space, what are some of the opportunities? This is the first one that we wanted to bring back to the committee, which is a rebate program. And so if you want to flip over to the second slide. So this isn't anything that isn't already being done, as literally hundreds of municipalities across the United States that have had or currently have some sort of electric lawnmower rebate program. And I'm going to ask folks, if you have questions, just hold them to the end because I'm watching the clock here. We can just run through questions at the end. So what's the objectives here is I'm going to talk about what would this look like or feel like in the city of Portsmouth, and talk about, what do we do next, right? What are the opportunities as we go forward? All right, so let's flip over to the next slide. So what is it? So basically, if individual citizen goes ahead and buys an electric lawnmower, possibly recycles a gas lawnmower, then they get money or they get a discount on buying a electric lawnmower. And Well, the reasons to do this are, it's driven by environmental concerns. And we are seeing there's certain pockets across the United States, and the ones specifically are California, Massachusetts, and Maryland pop up. Is for some reason 3 states that are really active in having these rebate programs for electric lawnmowers. All right, let's flip to the next slide. Advantages of electric lawnmowers. Gonna run through these really quick. Lower emissions, reduced noise. I know the reduction of noise is something we've talked about here a couple times, specifically around gas-powered leaf blowers. Easy start, they're lightweight, the fuel is cheaper. I put some statistics in there under cheaper fuel, which 10-year cost of ownership. A gas lawnmower on average is $302. So that's when you factor in oil and the gas and such. And then electric is $204. So the cost of ownership is a little bit less. Obviously, if the gas lawnmower needs more maintenance, it could go significantly higher than that. You don't have to be refilling electric lawnmower with gas where you have to go back and forth to the gas station. And then at the very bottom there, reduced maintenance. So I'm not going to go through, obviously, for the sake of time, all the details on this. I think, Kate, you'll be sending this deck out to everybody, so everybody can look at these details later on. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what are the benefits to Portsmouth? So by implementing a program like this, we could advance the culture of sustainability. We educate residents on electric versus fossil fuel choices, correct false perceptions. I think there's folks out there that don't feel that the cost is equivalent. They don't feel electric equipment is as powerful as gas equipment. They think that battery life is really short. All these things are items that were initially concerns, but have now since been overcome. We reduce air pollution, greenhouse gases, reduce noise pollution, and reduce gas spillage. And I'm going to cover gas spillage in a moment because I didn't realize till Steve pointed it out what a horrible problem that is. And when you see the statistics, you'll understand why I say that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So how harmful are gas lawnmowers? Here's some stats for everybody. So 5% of the nation's total air pollution comes from lawnmowers. Right, and that's not even factoring in other small gas-powered motors. Okay, next one. So running a lawnmower for 1 hour is the equivalent of driving your car for 300 miles. Right? There are no regulations around these motors. They burn very, very dirty. Down below, a couple more. Lawnmower emits as much air pollution in 1 hour of operation as driving 11 new cars for the same amount of distance. And then, okay, so here's the statistic that's shocking. Estimated 17 million gallons of gas is spilled every year in the United States for lawnmowers. And so, people have old gas in their lawnmowers and they don't hesitate to take it out back and they tip the thing over, they pour out the old gas, and then you put new gas in. People, I'm guilty of it. I think everybody's guilty of it. You fill up your lawnmower, sometimes you spill a little bit of gas. It's not a little. When you multiply that across the United States, 17 million gallons. I don't know, how many gallons does a swimming pool hold? I don't know if anybody knows, but it's
The outdoor pool, 100,000 gallons, the outdoor pool.
yeah. So put that in perspective. That's how much gas we're spilling in our country. Their gas lawnmowers are horrible for our environment. Okay, let's flip over the next slide. Residents and store interviews. So Chaz spent some time, he went around, he talked to at least one hardware store, maybe more. And so here's some information that he gathered, he put together of, what are the popular brands and why are the reasons for people to switch, common objections or switching from gas over to electric. And I'm not sure what now being discussed is. And unfortunately, Chaz is not here to
Oh, yeah.
represent that slide, but it's just more information. Okay, so now I'm gonna, if you can switch to the next slide, I'm gonna give some additional information that's not on this slide. Okay, so took a look at 20 programs across the country that municipalities have. And out of those programs, the rebates that are being offered are anywhere from $50 to $300. Usually they're about $100. So the way it looks and feels is, this is the way most of the programs work. I bring my lawnmower down to the DPW, and about 75% of these programs, the DPW or the municipality is involved in some way, right? They have some sort of transfer station. I bring my lawnmower down there and I get a voucher, my old gas lawnmower that I don't want anymore. The city makes sure that it gets responsibly recycled. I take my voucher to a participating vendor. And in many of the cases, the municipalities have partnered with Home Depot.
Sure.
And so Home Depot's been doing this nationwide. Lowe's has also done it. Ace has done it. There's a number of vendors where they've partnered up with the municipality. You get a voucher because you just recycled your gas lawnmower. You take it in there and say because I recycled my lawnmower, I get $100 voucher. And then most of the municipalities will throw in, say, another $100. So if I get a voucher for $100, I take it to Lowe's, I get $100 off a lawnmower. If I recycle the lawnmower, then I get a voucher for $200. And usually the municipality is the one that, say, that $100, they're kicking in $100. But when you think about starting to evolve the community and move them towards electric, $100 here or there is, it's not a lot when you think about that in that perspective. Massachusetts has, Mass Saves is the big program that they have. There are some other states that have the state in Utah, which I lived in for many years. Surprisingly, I was shocked that they have a massive program for electric. It's not just lawnmowers, it's leaf blowers, it's weed whackers, it's the whole thing. And New Hampshire or Utah is totally on board. And that's the gas and coal state. Like, they're fracking the heck out of that state. But I mean, it was fantastic to see that. And some of the programs offer gift cards. The majority of them are doing some sort of voucher program. About 10% of the 20 that we took a look at are offering some sort of commercial program. But the rest of them, that's only 10%. And the other 20 are obviously, it's just doing it for residents. So let's take a look at this slide here. So what does this program look like for the city of Portsmouth? Well, we would have to define it. We would not start from scratch because there is blueprint, right? And here's 20 programs that I picked out, but there's a lot more than that. And so, we can take a look at what the success has been of these programs. So considerations for our program, is it residential, commercial, gas lawnmower, trimmer, blower, where do we start? Gas equipment, recycling, whether we do that, what's the incentive amount? Is it a public-private partnership with, say, Ace, Lowe's, Home Depot? Do lower income residents? Do we offer them more, a larger rebate? what's the total budget? What's the duration, rebate voucher, debit card? What's the process for the requirements, roles and responsibilities? And then last slide, and then we can open it up for discussion, is what I'm proposing, what we're proposing. Chaz, Steve and I are, if this is a opportunity and initiative that this committee is interested in, Chaz, Steve and I can go back and put together a draft proposal for review by the committee and city staff. And these are the attributes of what would be included in that proposal. And I think that's about it. I just would like to open it up for conversations, and any questions that anybody has of, why the heck would we even do this, something like this?
I think this is a great idea, and I'd love to see you move us to the next steps. The questions which I have, one would be in communities where the town or city contributes to $100 wherever else. Do you know how much money they have budgeted towards that? Whether it's $10,000, like if you could look into that, because that basic number would help trying to get something up and running, especially with the budget season having kicked off for the city council on last night. And Steve, the question for you is, what does the DPW now do if someone shows up with a lawnmower at the transfer station?
From what I remember, it's been a long time since I worked down there, but if it was drained of oil and gas, it goes into the metal bin. And gets scrapped.
So as long as somebody takes the lawnmower out in their backyard and dumps it over. But it's not the gas or the oil.
You can bring your waste oil in a separate container unless you want to hold the lawnmower upside down.
It's not a container.
But they're not traded.
Is there a way to take gas there?
Oh, gas, we don't take, I don't even know if they would take.
In-
Hazardous
cans.
waste day.
Maybe.
In cans,
And-
the hazardous waste
Yeah,
day,
if
because
it's
I know I had
proper
cans
container,
from my.
Right, that would be a
Lower.
challenge, because they're probably mostly gonna come with gas unless people run them out.
So to quickly answer Josh's question before we go on, every municipality that I looked at is a different size. So when you say, so the city of Salt Lake City, right? I mean, there's different population than there is, say, in Portsmouth. So we'd have to think a
Orders
little
of
bit about
magnitude.
that to say, okay, how do we wanna, we could I could reach out to these municipalities and say, what did you budget for that? And then we could just do some,
Extrapolation.
yeah, exactly. So we could do something like that.
It seems like there's a administrative cost, which may be somewhat consistent between smaller cities and then a per capita cost, or how successful the program is, the more it costs.
Yeah.
So the city already has an environmental rebate program around toilets,
Mhm.
has for years. So looking at that could be useful. We've actively participated in educating consumers. Even down to getting to a computer and downloading the form. So they would leave with the form and the instructions on how to.
And when you say we, just for
I'm,
everybody here.
I work at Home Depot, I'm sorry.
There you go, yeah. Yeah, I get it.
I
Yes,
even have my Home Depot sweatshirt on top.
Bert?
The question that I have, and Wes might know from Home Depot, I think the incentive program and acceleration is where we're going. And so what I'm interested in from these municipalities, at what point do you do the flip over? When people, at what point is the tipping point? At what point is the flip over when everybody looks, oh, my neighbor, why would I get a gas mower? And I see how good the electric, that's where we're going. We're
Yeah.
going for the tipping point.
Yeah.
So my question that I would have for any of these communities, what is the cultural shift? Have you hit a tipping point where you don't need to give the incentive anymore because nobody's going out and buying a old gas. See, so I think
Yeah.
we're at the place where we're an educational, I would say it's not the $100 or the money, it's what bang are we getting for the cultural education
Yeah.
for to that flipping over point. So that's, from a systems point of view, that's what I'd be looking at and interested in how people have found that out. Does it accelerate?
Well, and it's different in different places in the country. If you live in California, also in West, you can probably talk to this. Home Depot, just like Lowe's and others, are phasing out the selling of gas products.
That's what I'm saying.
And so, you know, is this something that we would do for 1 year and then we assess? I mean, I think that's what we talked about, was having a small pilot program. And maybe even we gauge it towards people that have, you know, are economically disadvantaged, right? And we do it for 1 year, small pilot program, and then you assess the results. And so what I did find was some of these programs, they were capturing lots of metrics to determine what is the success. And do we do it again for 1 more year? Or have we reached the tipping point? And part of that tipping point, Home Depot's got massive amounts of data. I mean, they could tell you how many year over year, month over month.
That's what I'm saying. Are we,
Gas
is
versus
it already
electric.
there in our community?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, so
You
that's,
can watch the graph.
that's what
You
I'm-
can watch the graph, and when the graph starts going down, you say, oh, you know, there's no longer value.
Great question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Thanks. We're probably too late to do it at the sustainability fair. But it might be that a 1-day promoted event, like bring in your gas mower.
Yeah.
and We'll give you a voucher for electric. And then you would limit the number of people taking advantage of it, but you'd still get the education.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different ways to configure it, and you're aware that different places do it different ways.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point too, that I want to pull a little bit more on, is if we do something like that, I want to be clear is that we design this however we want. And if we work with Lowe's and Lowe's said, yes, we'll participate, we'll do $100 voucher, it could be that the city chips in no money at all. But what I've mostly seen is that the municipality would throw in $100, and then the participating vendor would say throw in $100. Usually it works like that, but not all. You know, some of them are different. Some they just worked out a deal with, say, a local Ace, you know, hardware store, where they said, yeah, send people to us and we'll give them $50 off. So yeah,
Have you attended any of the state cap stuff yet?
no.
Because I'm wondering, they only briefly touched upon it, but my understanding from last night was that they are eager to find projects that are happening or people are working on trying to find money for, because it helps support their effort to get the federal funds. So I wonder if this might potentially be
Federal
something
funds for what though?
for our cap and for implementing the state cap and for getting that money that they're trying to.
programs.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not talking about funding, they're not talking about the federal dollars to complete a cap.
N-
You're talking about that they, through their
Caps
cap
and
process, they're going out looking for federal funds.
They already have those funds for the cap.
Yeah.
And they need to finish the cap by March and do a whole bunch of public engagement, which is what we've all been participating in. If they get it done, then they qualify to compete with other states and communities for some of this IRA funds.
A lot of the IRA funds have like provisions essentially being like, okay, well, you have to have done steps 1
Yeah.
through 2 before we're gonna give you money to then implement solutions.
Yeah.
And do community conversations, which is what they're doing to say they've done it.
But my understanding is part of that is finding projects that they can say, oh, we're supporting this effort in this town, or we're supporting this effort in this community.
It makes a stronger application for them because
Right.
it's in the pipeline rather than a blank page.
Right.
And but let me, before you go, let me say something. And one of my focuses being on this committee is finding work that we can do. Because when you start going the scope starts getting bigger and you start talking about state and such, I find this goes on a year after year after year. And so when Steve, Chaz and I met, we talked about, this was one thing that we said we could pick off, we can do locally, and we can successfully implement it. And so, great idea with CAP and the state and all of that. But, you could be talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, and I agree,
Yeah,
but I
that's-
just,
that-
there
that's
seemed
the
to be a
challenge.
sense of urgency, like they kept saying, if you know of stuff happening in your community that we can support and engage, let us know, like that was a reoccurring theme from what I heard last night.
Yeah,
So
they
that's the
want
only reason that I,
Implement ready near-term projects. So-
Yeah.
Like CAP strategies, which
Okay, Gabe, what did
are in the
you?
pipeline.
I really like this. My like big kind of idea or concern is that like, I feel like landscaping companies have such more of like a impact on it compared to like the general public.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if like we could implement strategies to like kind of tackle that and like.
Yeah, Steve.
Yes, it is one of the other things we have discussed about how to address the many commercial landscapers in town. Trying to pick off ideas on that, maybe a pilot program or partnering with a certain company. What was some of the other stuff?
Well,
I mean,
so
it is a tough one because I mean, like, so this would be for like a homeowner who mows a small plot of land, like typical house in Elwin Park or wherever. But yeah, you got landscapers that are using these equipment on multiple properties all day, every day, all week. They have different concerns. I think electric can meet those concerns and demands. It's just it's so on a bigger scale, it's a bigger investment. So we have to, but we are thinking about that and how to approach that.
So it's interesting that you bring this up because there are a lot of landscapers that we found across the country that have gone 100% electric, and they're using it to market their business. And they're going out and saying, look, we've converted our entire fleet of equipment over to electric, so we're eco-friendly. Sign up for our services.
And thank you for asking that question. It was one of the things I was gonna ask is have we actually looked at our demographic and determined how many people are actually using or leveraging? I look at my neighbors and I can tell you that most of them are fairly wealthy and don't spend time doing anything to their lawn. They have somebody else. Look, the other thing that I wanted to ask as well, though, was are your numbers in terms of the impact of gas powered motors, does it include storage and the fumes that come off of open storage containers?
No. That's a great question. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, have not looked at that. And when it comes to landscapers too, if you look around Portsmouth, a lot of the landscapers are in Portsmouth. And so that's a challenge too, for how do we as a committee affect change? So when a lot of these landscapers are based out of Maine, they come over the bridge. I don't know about you. I spent a lot of time going back and forth across the Memorial Bridge, and there is a steady stream of landscapers driving back and forth because they're all registered in Maine. Or not all, but a lot of them are. So, it's something we'd have to look at. And we also, we have a number of, this is just one of a number of ideas. Another one is implementing guidelines or a plan for neighborhood share plan or a neighborhood share program. And so to put kind of a blueprint together and to educate residents to say, hey, look, don't go out and buy another lawnmower. Go knock on your neighbor's door. If you don't know your neighbor, get to know them and talk about, buying an electric lawnmower and sharing it. Because what is the percentage of time that lawnmower is being used when I just own a lawnmower and I use it every 2 weeks and I use it for an hour, right? So, somewhere that piece of equipment had to be manufactured. And there is a lot of pollution that was involved in manufacturing that piece of equipment, ultimately delivering it to me. And then I use it for 0.03% of the year, right? The rest of the time so that doesn't make any sense. So that's something that we found there are a lot of good blueprints that are being used across the country. And so I think that's something here too, that this committee, we could put it up on our website, on the city's website, and we could even host something over at the library to educate people. How do you put together a neighborhood share program? And let's extend it to other things like power tools and stuff like that. And no, I'm not trying to put Home Depot out of business, but not
worried.
Not everybody, right? Not everybody needs to own a circular saw, right? If somebody in the neighborhood has it, then, then you can borrow, you can use it.
Careful, Herbs, people start talking positively about homeowner associations.
Yeah.
But I also think that I'll say the size of the demographic that you're probably gonna end up targeting makes this actually a much more feasible opportunity for us to be successful.
For the share program?
Well, no, for this particular rebate.
Oh, for the rebate program,
You've
yeah.
already given me a great business model to start tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm just gonna buy a bunch of Start a share.
And you just start a share program.
So the idea wasn't necessarily that, I mean, it could be just a pilot program just to see how it goes. I mean, you could theoretically, start with like $5,000 and if everyone's getting $100, that's how many vouchers you give out for that year and see how it goes. And again, it's to Bert's
I'd
point, it's
like to
start
say
the
that this has
process.
been informative the second time around. I'd like to see it include on the next agenda that we have about 8 minutes left so that.
Yep.
we can move on.
Yeah, the last item on our agenda, if there's any way we could really quickly go over it, is a climate action plan outreach and engagement update. So would anyone like to?
What about website updates? Is that?
Oh, yeah, I missed that too.
I will quickly whip through those and just on a note on the last subject real quick, there is a landscaping company in town that is all electric. Won't plug their name, but they're my friends from high school, so if anyone is interested,
Can you slip me an email?
I might be able to.
Yes.
Uh,
I couldn't find one in the state of New Hampshire, but obviously they exist.
Yeah, so on to website updates. I know we had some emails back and forth with people about updating the website. We went in and updated the new members that were officially put on, and we all have to put your name up there for the school board rep. But if anyone else has any ideas for the website, just the sustainability committee page on the city website. If you have any ideas, we're always open to suggestions. We just thought we can bring these ideas to meetings and sort of have a structured list of what we want to add to it, sort of what links we want to link to. I have my own list going, so maybe at the next meeting in February, we can go over those details and what we want to see up there. But if you have any ideas and you want to individually email me, that's great too, and we can bring that to the next meeting. And then to sort of jump into climate action plan. As many of you may know, and I did email the Portsmouth Climate Action Group last night, workshop number 3, the final community input and feedback session is going to be February 6th. That's a Tuesday. And it's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. in the council chambers right down the hall. And so that's going to be the consultant team is going to give a brief presentation on sort of where they've gotten so far. They're going to tell us about the net zero goals that they've gotten to for both the community and the municipality. And just to give you like a sneak peek idea, they have different years for getting to 80% based off of 80% reduction based off of like the 2018 greenhouse gas inventory. And then they have 100% net zero goals. And I think those are like 2035, 2040, 2050, depending on if it's municipal versus community. And they have a lot of great ideas for reaching those quickly and more quicker than we need to, or that they point out, but they're going to be bringing those sort of ideas. They're going to present on the business as usual emission scenarios. And then we're going to have our main work session and discussion in groups, sort of similar to the second workshop based on the different categories of greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategies. So we'll have those sort of prioritized strategies for those different categories, which is like land management, transportation, built environment, stuff like that, infrastructure. And the priorities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then if time allows, we're also gonna have a work group session to go over the climate adaptation and resilience strategies that they've come up with, sort of narrow those down or add to them. We're hoping to get those in during the meeting, but we'll also have sort of a period of time afterwards where if you want to send in final feedback, we'll probably do a week or two to give the consultants any final feedback on the strategies. And then I think we're planning to have sort of a more internal meeting with all the city departments to make sure that everyone's on board with some of the city municipal strategies and sort of where we can get to in certain time frames and what the timelines are going to look like for that and funding sources so that setting realistic goals that we can achieve. So that'll be happening after workshop number 3, just internally with the city departments. But the hope is after workshop number 3, everything gets finalized, the plan starts to get written, and then we bring it in front of city council, hopefully March, April, and get it officially accepted and have a celebration and start working on it. Not that we haven't already been working on it, but start banging things out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions, let me know. Let's also have flyers if anyone would like to put the flyer.
What was the date for that third workshop again?
Tuesday, February 6th at
There's a poster
6,
coming.
yeah,
out.
6 to 8 PM.
Thank you.
All right, so next meeting is February 22nd. And we have Tori Brooks on facilitator and Eco Club recording. That's it.
Emma and I will be in Costa Rica on that day, but Evie will be able to.
Can I come?
So some of us may be running back and forth between two.
Oh,
Yeah.
The housing meeting.
So I just need to check, because I did send in, the usual process was the person facilitates, then the people who record then facilitate. So Corey would be, then we said the Eco Club would be recorder.
Yeah.
But you just facilitated, that's why I thought that was not.
That's what the current schedule is set up
Facilitate
as.
First, then record. So we're facilitating them a recording. Tori's recording, then she's it flips every.
Yeah, just, and it's like.
So you do like a new grouping every.
Yeah.
If you want to flip it so that it's not,
So
there's always someone from the last meeting.
the reason that the recorder remained the facilitator next time, because they had to go through the whole agenda and they kind of knew what was coming up, and it made sense for the recorder to be the facilitator. Does that make sense to you?
Do we want to rework the schedule?
That's
for-
why I sent that and asked you, Peter, if you would bring that up, and I don't know if the other, I think it should be reworked.
Okay.
Peter, you mean you didn't do what I?
Do what you told me.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
I will not publicly embarrass Peter.
Peter doesn't have anything on his plate.
No, that's a good point. Good point.
So
Bert, and we will.
do we want to swap?
I would say, I
Well,
think it
I
would
think we
be,
should continue next month the way we have it, and maybe the month after that, we can switch it.
So we'll change it from March on. Okay.
yeah, from March on, can we do that?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Right, Bert.
Any last comments for the meeting?
Great job.
Great job.
All right.
I would say it was not only a memorable night, but this is heartwarming and really powerful for me. And does anybody know who Max is?
Hi,
I know
Max.
What?
I know Max.
All right,
He works Max Wader, the,
Max Schrader.
oh, Max Schrader, sorry. I thought you were about Max. Tree guy.
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah,
good.
it's great.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't know
not
if anybody
good.
would hear from
That's
me,
not
but
the tree.
anyway, it's nice
Thanks
to.
for joining,
I
Max.
said, thanks, Max. And so if we have time for the picture, that'd be good, and the checkout.
Yeah, we'll do check out first. If you want to do the. Do you want to do the
Check it.
official adjournment first and then
Oh, yeah, we always adjourn.
just now that we're standing?
I make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Second.
All right.
All those in favor?
All in favor.
Nice.
Thank you. I always forget that. part.
Would one of the three people who are there in the back take the picture? Yeah, that'd be great for him. Thank you.